Media trying to bury the Twitter files. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Over the weekend, as I'm sure you remember my telling you, journalist Matt Taibbi released a tweet storm about the old regime at Twitter suppressing a political story. Now, as bad as any such suppression would be, it happened during an election campaign with the intent to skew the election. The day after these tweets dropped, I talked about it, of course. Now, today, we see further evidence that the ideological corruption of our news media goes much further than social media alone. The legacy media are studiously ignoring this story, maybe hoping it will go away, but in trying to bury the Twitter files, they only reveal their own embarrassment. Before I dive into this, and also address the delay on the next installment, and something Donald Trump said, as opposed to what the media say he said, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. Be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, including this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which quotes Aldous Huxley. Yes, that Aldous Huxley, as saying, facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored. I showed you this last time, and it still goes. What the old Twitter staff did 2 years ago, the legacy media are doing today. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click on that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. Now, you all remember my talking about Matt Taibbi and his thread, now with 41 tweets in it concerning news manipulation at Twitter. The first 12 tweets served as an introduction, and in the rest of them, Taibbi treated the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story on completely specious grounds, and Twitter staff knew they were specious while they were so acting. Taibbi ended his thread as he began it, with the promise of more to come. He and Elon Musk gave everyone reason to suspect that the next installment would come on Saturday, later that Saturday. Now, thus far, it still hasn't come. I haven't seen it yet. Elon announced a delay of a day or so, according to Newsmax. I have a link in the description to Elon's tweet announcing the delay, and then to Ian Miles Cheong's tweet saying, and I quote, better late than half-baked, unquote, Ian Miles Cheong. And with that, I have to agree. When you're releasing a story that embarrasses so many prominent people that you feel your life is on the line, as Elon has said publicly on Twitter, by the way, you owe it to yourself and your readers to get it right the first time. A user named Something Wicked also agrees with this. I have a link in the description to a very interesting tweet featuring an animated image of the Twitter bird and two crossed bones in white on a black background. That's right, Twitter's version of the Jolly Roger. And this quote, it took Twitter 16 years to build the world's greatest censorship machine. It took Elon 1 month to break the wheel and figure out where all the bodies are buried. We can wait 24 hours for episode 2 of the Twitter files, unquote, Something Wicked. We now turn to Donald J. Trump, who reacted in outrage to the release and said something that admittedly lent itself to avoidable distortion. As ever, he now confines himself to Truth Social, which he owns. On that medium, he said 3 truths beginning late Friday evening. I have links in the description to all 3. And I'm going to quote from them right now. Here goes. I am glad that everyone is now seeing the light on what I have been saying loud and clear for the last 2 years, that the 2020 presidential election was rigged and stolen by a combination of Democrats, big tech, quote, law enforcement, unquote, and other bad actors. Sadly, we have become a corrupt country, perhaps one of the most corrupt anywhere in the world. We must right this horrible wrong and take our country back. And the next one. Wow, that's really a big story about Twitter and various forms of government fraud, including specifically elections fraud. The same level of fraud took place with the other big tech companies, if not even worse, if that's possible. We are living in a very corrupt country, and as they are saying all over the internet, nothing will be done about it because the Justice Department and FBI are totally corrupt. But they'll keep investigating boxes that were legally and openly taken from the White House. Unquote, Donald J. Trump. That part about boxes, of course, is a reference to the Mar-a-Lago raid. And then Trump said the confusing thing. And again, I quote, "So, with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception in working closely with big tech companies, the DNC, and the Democratic Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner? Or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections." Unquote, Donald J. Trump. Now, let me make myself clear. What you just heard is word for word what he actually said, straight from the source. I went to that source because I like primary sources. And I want to tell you something else. No other person, not even Elon Musk himself, seems to have read what I just read to you with anything approaching due care. I have a link in the description to a tweet Elon dropped in reply to a Fox News story about the current White House reaction to what Trump said. Never mind any reaction from this White House. Elon himself said the more noteworthy thing. Again, I quote, "The Constitution is greater than any president, end of story." End of quote. And a lofty sentiment, to be sure. I don't have a problem with that. But I do have a problem with the misperception of what Trump said. Contrary to anything Joe Biden or Ambassador Susan Rice or any legacy medium would have you believe, Trump did not call to suspend the entire Constitution. But I think he did call to suspend those parts of it relating to presidential elections. That would be Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 2 through 4, and the 12th Amendment. Trump seems to be acknowledging a bitter truth. The Constitution does not provide for correcting or even investigating at the federal level allegations of any impropriety in the appointment of presidential electors. Either that or Vice President Pence had his last chance to do that, but he didn't, and it might be too late by now. Having said that, I also think Trump got ahead of himself, because all that Matt Taibbi has alleged so far is management of the news. That constitutes grounds to reform or replace the institution that did the managing, or for candidates to find new channels for their own messaging. You don't throw out an election just because somebody buried your message. In the end, the only remedy is education of the public. That's where I come in. I and many other YouTubers whom you will find by visiting the channel link at the bottom of this video and looking for a list of featured channels. Now, I want to talk about something a lot more serious than any confusing and confused thing that Trump said over the weekend. I want to talk about who is not saying anything about the Twitter files today. Before I start on that, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities that this company provides, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Okay. Mr. Clay Travis observed on the very morning after the Twitter Files tweet storm dropped, and again, I quote, "There is not one single article about Elon Musk or the Twitter email release last night or on the New York Times app this morning," unquote Clay Travis, who in fact went on in 3 more tweets. I have links in the description to the second and fourth tweet, so that between those two, you can see them all. Here then is the rest of what he said. Quote, "The Washington Post, which literally has 'Democracy Dies in Darkness' at the top of its paper," meaning the masthead, "not one single article about Elon Musk or Twitter's email release last night. How is this possible, Jeff Bezos?" He's the one who owns the Post by now. "Do you own a newspaper or a propaganda rag?" Remember, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, powers of media is deciding which stories to cover. If you just read the New York Times and the Washington Post, as tens of millions do, you'd have no idea about last night's news on this site. The vast majority of Americans don't use Twitter. Whatever your politics are, if you're in media and you don't think the new revelations about the most severe censorship of a newspaper story in big tech history isn't a story worthy of covering, you aren't a journalist, you're a propagandist, unquote Clay Travis. To which I heartily agree, and by the way, I'm still waiting to see anything in legacy media about this. So does Elon Musk. You know what he said back? Quote, "That is because the New York Times has become, for all intents and purposes, an unregistered lobbying firm for far-left politicians," unquote Elon Musk. In reply to that, a user with the username ALX, or pronounced Alex, who got his account back last month, shared a video of him checking the New York Times app and finding no mention of the Twitter Files. I have a link in the description to his tweet with that video, and to a tweet by a user named Conservative KB, reminding everyone that CNN and MSNBC didn't cover it either. Fox News Channel did, but not Legacy. Matt Taibbi, for his part, took note of typical media hypocrisy. I have a link in the description to a tweet from him, quoting an article in Mediaite, describing what they call the 27 lamest tweet reactions to the Taibbi thread on Twitter. To their credit, Mediaite's 27 lamest turned out to be all leftists, and all trying to poo-poo the story and succeeded in embarrassing only themselves. Follow the link to the tweet and then follow the further link in the tweet to the article. And here is what Matt Taibbi said in the tweet text. Quote, "Looking forward to going through all the tweets complaining about PR for the richest man on earth," meaning Musk, "and seeing how many of them have run stories from anonymous sources at the FBI, CIA, the Pentagon, White House, etc., unquote Matt Taibbi. This morning, the columnist Streif at Red State noted the lack of coverage and Clay Travis' complaints about it. Then he discussed the larger problem. The media have lost the trust of the American people, and it's their fault that they have. He suggests the only people who even read legacy media anymore are simpatico with the Democrats. Editors and reporters feel the same way, so they become exactly what Elon Musk says they are: unregistered lobbyists for the Democrats. I close with this Streif character's last two paragraphs. Quote, mainstream media have now reached the point that aviators refer to as being out of altitude, out of airspeed, and out of ideas. When you reach the point where only 1 in 10 Americans trust you, you have a problem. You can't change your way of coverage to create a larger audience because your core customers will revolt and leave long before you see market growth. Your only option is to double down on extremism to keep the audience you do have. There is good news here. CNN is within a year or so of folding. Even Jeff Bezos won't tolerate the sinkhole for cash that is the Washington Post. Well, I wonder about that. If the New York Times newsroom walks out on strike, the number of workers returning will be a fraction of today's workforce. Slowly but surely, market forces are crushing the gatekeepers. I don't know what will emerge from the smoking wreckage, but it can't possibly be as vile and corrupt as what exists today. Close quote. Link in the description to the article, to Elon announcing the delay and reactions to that announcement, to Trump's 3 truths, including what he really said about terminating rules and regulations, to Clay Travis' thread, to Alex showing what's not showing up on the New York Times app, to the tweet saying that CNN and MSNBC aren't covering it either, to Matt Taibbi's quote of the Mediaite article and his own statement about anonymous sources, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel, and I'm going to leave a link to my Twitter War playlist, my Mar-a-Lago Raid playlist, and to a video by Fox News saying that the Sunday morning shows devoted a total of 7 seconds to the Twitter files. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.